Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the football betting series here on YouTube Premier League edition. Following Matchday 3, our September record stands at 5 wins, 1 loss, and 0 pushes for a total profit of £43.90. When we add that to our overall record, and we're looking at 16 wins, 6 losses, and 3 pushes for a series profit of £103.09. A word of caution before episode 4. We're coming back off an international break, so my advice is to exercise a wee bit of caution in the moves that you make. Take a half stake here and there, or maybe miss off the odd game if you're not fully convinced. That being said, I have 4 selections in today's episode, so if you think I'm talking some sense, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Without further ado, let's get into it. Our first selection sees 19th place Southampton playing host to 14th place Manchester United. And Southampton, they lost their previous game by 3-1 against Brentford. A game in which their only contribution to the scoreline was a 95th minute Sugawara consolation goal. And whilst there are some positives to take from the game, Southampton did take up most of the possession and generated 1.57 xG, which is the best they've produced so far in this young season. The Saints also gave up 20 efforts on goal, combining for an xG of 2.78 against. That result means that Southampton have played 3 and lost 3. Southampton are looking like a championship side in the Premiership, and they're going to have to do a lot better in every area of the pitch if they're going to gain points to secure their safety this year. They play a Manchester United side who must have been so happy to get off for an international break, as they were trounced by Liverpool 3-0 in their previous match. Diaz and Salah linked up for the goals, but it could have been even more than 3. If we're searching for positives from a Manchester United perspective, after a terrible first half, they did manage to come back into the game a little bit. And on a different day, perhaps Joshua Zirkzee could have finished off a couple of chances to bring Manchester United back into the game. Form-wise, it's just 1 win from 4 to start the season for Manchester United, and that was a bit of a fortunate result against Fulham, with Zirkzee scoring a late winner in the opening game of the season. Head-to-head, the last encounter was in March of 2023, a 0-0 result, which, on the face of things, looks all right for the Saints. But when you consider that Casemiro was sent off after 34 minutes and Southampton failed to take advantage playing against 10 men for the best part of an hour, it's another damning indictment of their attack. Looking a little bit longer term, and Southampton have not beaten Manchester United in the last 15 competitive encounters. Also, Southampton have not won against Manchester United in the last 14 competitive matches at St Mary's, and that's a result dating back to 2003-2004. My prediction for this game is I'm very tempted to take Manchester United -1 on the Asian handicap. I really don't rate Southampton's attacking ability, but by the same extent, I'm not sure I can trust Manchester United to overpower a side and win by a comfortable margin. With this said, I'm still on the Manchester United side of things to pick up another positive result at St Mary's, so I'll be backing Manchester United to win for a half stake, cautious about the post-international dip and some poor form here in bet number 1. Our second selection sees 8th place Bournemouth playing 11th place Chelsea. And Bournemouth, they showed tremendous grit and determination to overcome a 2-0 deficit against Everton at Goodison. Goals from Semyeno and Cook tied the game 2-2 before Sinisterra's 96th minute header at the back post nicked all 3 points for the Cherries in a match which, in truth, Everton should have been out of sight. For Bournemouth, it's been an unbeaten start to the year, and they could have even had more points than the 5 they have if they weren't denied a late winner against Newcastle on Matchday 2. They play a Chelsea side who, in their last game, Nico Jackson helped the Blues take the lead against Crystal Palace after 25 minutes. And this was a lead they held into the half-time interval before Eberici Eze levelled things just after the break for the Eagles, and the game finished all evens. Chelsea were unable to make their dominant show, despite creating over 4 times the amount of expected goals and forcing Henderson into 6 saves. They could only find the back of the net once. Form-wise, Chelsea have bounced back from their opening day 2-0 loss to Manchester City. Winning against Wolves and drawing against Palace means that Chelsea's form is very mixed right now. When we look at the head-to-head record, Chelsea picked up a win towards the end of last season. They jumped out to a 2-0 lead before Badiashile's own goal restored Bournemouth's faith. As they pressed on to pursue an equaliser, unfortunately the Cherries could not get another goal, and Chelsea won the match 2-1. This result did mean that Chelsea are unbeaten in each of the last 5 competitive meetings between these sides. And at the Vitality, Chelsea are unbeaten in the last 7 seasons since Bournemouth's return to the big time. My prediction for this game, as with the last selection, I'm respecting Bournemouth's solid start to the season, and I'm also mindful about the disturbances that international breaks cause with our form. Whilst I'm leaning Chelsea here and flirting with taking them for a half stake, I just want the extra reassurance of the draw as well. So as such, I'll be taking Chelsea double chance or laying Bournemouth for a full stake in bet number 2. Moving on to the Sunday now, and bet number 3 has to be the biggest game of the weekend. 10th place Spurs play 4th place Arsenal in the North London derby. And Spurs, despite having most of the ball and a lot of the play in the final third in their last game, they really struggled to add to their equalising goal against the Magpies in their last match. And in what is becoming a little bit of a theme of the Postecoglou era, Spurs' high defensive line caused further trouble for them as Newcastle broke with Isak scoring to give the Geordies the 2-1 win. Form-wise, this means that Spurs have a 1-1-1 record from their first 3 games. Their general play has been very nice to watch, but the end product has been lacking, and they'll be hoping that Dominic Solanke can provide the answers that they need when he returns from injury. The away side Arsenal, they were frustrated at the Emirates in their last game, held to a 1-1 draw against Brighton. It appeared that Arsenal had the game in hand in the first half. They were 1-0 up at home, having 6 shots to Brighton's 3, and 3 big chances created. If that wasn't enough, their XG was also 12 times greater than their visitors, 0.98 to Brighton's 0.08. The whole game changed 4 minutes into the second half, however, with Declan Rice being sent off for his second yellow card. Despite protestations being made, the PGMOL, which is the professional body for all Premier League referees, have pointed out that they're going to be clamping down on unsportsmanlike conduct, such as kicking the ball away from play. So it shouldn't have been much news for Declan Rice, as he was blatantly guilty of kicking the ball away. This left Chris Kavanagh with no other choice than to award a second yellow and consequently change the course of the game. After the sending off, Brighton generated 19 shots with 3 big chances of their own and created an XG of 1.74. João Pedro managed to equalise for the Seagulls, but there was no second goal to be found in this game, with the match finishing 1-1. Form-wise, Arsenal are unbeaten in their first 3 games of the season. Back-to-back 2-0 wins against Wolves and Villa, capped off by the 1-1 draw against Brighton, puts them 4th place in the table early on. You can't win a title after 3 games, but you can certainly lose it, and Arsenal have made an admirable start to the campaign. When we look at the head-to-head records, last time out, Arsenal won by 3-2, but the score only tells half the story. Arsenal were handed an opening goal thanks to Højbjerg's own goal, with Saka and then Havertz adding a second and third by the interval, and the Gunners led at half-time by 3-0. Romero managed to score and Son scored a penalty, which added a little bit of gloss to an otherwise embarrassing scoreline, and to Spurs' credit, they did control the game in the second half, but handing a 3-0 lead to your rivals ensures that the match is never going to go your way. This result meant that it was 4 unbeaten in the derby for Arsenal, with Spurs winning just 1 in the last 7 encounters. My prediction for this game is that both sides have the capacity to rack up a lot of goals. They create a high volume of goal-scoring opportunities, and once they sort their finishing out, this will pay dividends. This game is often unpredictable, as is the nature of derby games, but I really like goals here, and here's why. Spurs have seen over 2.5 goals in 2 of their 3 games to start the season, and this could have easily been 3 out of 3 based on the amount of chances created in the Leicester match. Last year, Spurs led the league in the over 2.5 goal market, with 79% of their games seeing at least 3 goals scored, with an average of 3.55 goals scored per game. Additionally, at home, Spurs topped the league with 84% of their games seeing over 2.5 goals, with an average of 3.42 goals per game. When we look at Arsenal's stats, they've not got off to the best start this year. 0 of their 3 games have seen over 2.5 goals. But we have to take into account Arsenal's opponents had not really created too much early on this season, so that could be a bit of a red herring. Last season, Arsenal saw over 2.5 goals in 63% of their games for an average of 3.16 goals per game. On the road, these numbers did fall off a little bit, 53% of games and 2.95 goals scored per game. When we look at the head-to-head record, 6 of the last 7 North London derbies have seen over 2.5 goals scored, 3.57 goals per game in this period. With this in mind, I would struggle to take anything other than an over 2.5 goals bet. Over 2.5 goals for a full stake in bet number 3 for me. Our 4th and final selection in today's episode sees 18th place Wolves hosting 5th place Newcastle. And Wolves once again fell behind in their last match against Forest, a feat which has been accomplished in all 3 of their Premier League games. Unlike the 2 opening games, though, Wolves did manage to summon up an equaliser not 2 minutes later as Mario Lemina found Bellegarde to level the game up. From there, it was a holdout kind of display from Wolves, and the second half numbers illustrate this perfectly. However, they did manage to pick up a point on the road, their first point of the season. The main thing for O'Neill's side is to see a bounce back after the 6-2 hammering at the hands of Chelsea, and they definitely showed this in their last match. They play a Newcastle side who, in their last game, Harvey Barnes managed to break the deadlock against Spurs. A Dan Burn own goal gave Newcastle a bit of a cause for concern, and Spurs did pile on the pressure late on the game. However, Newcastle stood strong, and Jonathan Isaac scored the winning goal to hand Newcastle a 2-1 victory at home. That result now means that Newcastle are one of 7 sides that are unbeaten heading into Matchday 4. The 1-1 draw against Bournemouth sandwiched by 2 narrow wins. When we look at the head-to-head record, Newcastle won the previous encounter between these sides in convincing style, winning 3-0 with goals from Isaac, Gordon and Livramento. And both sides did create a similar amount of chances, but there was a real gulf in the quality of chances created. Newcastle's 5 big chances racked up an XG of 2.19, compared to Wolves' 12 efforts, equaling just 0.8. Longer term, Newcastle are unbeaten in the last 5 meetings, winning thrice. And speaking of winning, Wolves have only picked up a single win in the last 11 Premier League encounters. All of the above points to Newcastle being the favourites, and at even money, it is very tempting to back them outright. We're in line with my thinking this episode. Just coming off an international break and unsure of the early season form, I'm going to lay the home side. If you're feeling braver than me, feel free to back Newcastle for either a half stake or a full stake, but I'm going conservative here. I'm going to lay the home side in the final bet of today's episode. So there we have it, 4 selections in today's episode, starting off with Southampton versus Man United. I'm going to be backing the away side at odds of 1.79, a £20 stake to return £15.80. Also on the Saturday, Bournemouth play Chelsea. I'm going to be laying the home side at odds of about 1.38, a full stake of £40 to return £14.81. On the Sunday, Spurs versus Arsenal, over 2.5 goals, odds of 1.56, a £40 stake to return £22.40. And wrapping up the episode with Wolves and Newcastle, I'm going to be laying the home side at about odds of 1.37, a £40 stake to return £15.09. So across our 4 selections, we're going to be risking £140 to pick up as much as £68.10. Will we do so? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tune into the next episode. But if you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Also, don't forget to check out the continental pits in the pinned comment down below. And as always, have yourself a lovely day.